The rain was cold and relentless as it pounded against the tall glass windows of Blake Tower. Inside the marble lobby, security guards stood at their posts, watching the steady stream of suited businesspeople coming and going. Nobody noticed the small figure slipping through the revolving door, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the polished floor. Grace Thompson was only 5 years old, but she had learned that when your mother is dying, you stop being a child. You do whatever it takes. Her pink dress, faded from too many washes, clung to her small frame. Water dripped from her braided hair, creating small puddles wherever she stood. Grace's brown eyes were wide with determination as she looked up at the enormous building around her. She had heard people talk about Harrison Blake. They said he was the richest man in the city. They said he owned everything. Grace didn't care about any of that. She only cared that he had money and money could save her mama. She walked past the security desk while the guards were distracted by a delivery person. Her small size made her almost invisible in the bustling lobby. Grace found the elevators and squeezed in behind a group of lawyers carrying briefcases. She pressed herself against the back wall, making herself as tiny as possible. When someone asked what floor she needed, Grace whispered, "Top floor, please." The woman smiled at her, thinking she was someone's daughter visiting the office. The elevator climbed higher and higher. Grace's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. When the doors opened on the 35th floor, she stepped out into a world of glass walls and expensive furniture. A receptionist sat behind a curved desk, typing on her computer. Grace took a deep breath and ran. Her little legs carried her past the desk before the receptionist could react. "Hey little girl, stop," the receptionist called out, but Grace was already pushing through the heavy wooden doors at the end of the hallway. Harrison Blake sat in his corner office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city. He was in the middle of a crucial meeting with potential investors. 3 men in expensive suits sat across from him, discussing a multi-million-dollar deal. Papers were spread across his glass desk, and everyone was focused on the presentation being projected on the wall. The door burst open with such force that everyone jumped. Harrison looked up, expecting to see his assistant with an emergency. Instead, he saw a tiny, soaking wet child standing in the doorway. Her chest heaved with effort, and water dripped from her clothes onto his office carpet. For a moment, everyone in the room froze, too shocked to speak. Grace's eyes locked onto Harrison. She had seen his picture in a magazine her mama used to read. She knew this was him. Without hesitation, she ran across the room and fell to her knees in front of his desk. Her small hands gripped the edge of the glass surface, and she looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. "Please, sir," Grace said, her voice breaking. "Please give me a job. Any job. I can clean your office. I can carry your papers. I can organize your books. I'll work hard, I promise. I'll do anything you need. Just please pay me so I can save my mama." Harrison stared at the child, his mind struggling to process what was happening. The investors looked at each other uncomfortably. Harrison's assistant, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway, her face pale with concern. "Mr. Blake, I'm so sorry." She ran past the desk before I could stop her. "Security is on their way." "No," Harrison said quietly, holding up his hand. He stood from his chair and walked around the desk. Kneeling down to Grace's level, he looked into her tear-filled eyes. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Grace, sir. Grace Thompson. I'm 5 years old and I'm a good worker. My mama taught me how to clean really good. I can fold clothes perfect. I can." Her voice broke into sobs. "My mama is dying and we don't have money for the hospital. The doctors say she needs a kidney transplant, but we can't afford it. We don't have insurance. We don't have anything anymore." Harrison felt his chest tighten. He had seen poverty before. He had experienced it himself as a teenager after his parents died. But seeing this small child, barefoot and desperate, broke something inside him. "Grace, how did you get here?" he asked gently. "I walked, sir. I walked from the shelter on 5th Street. It took me 2 hours, but I had to come. Mama doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm at the neighbor's house. But I heard her crying last night. She thinks I'm asleep, but I heard her telling God she's ready to die. But I'm not ready, sir. I need my mama. Please, I'll work every single day. I won't complain. I won't ask for breaks. Just please help me save her." The investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of them cleared his throat. "Blake, perhaps we should reschedule this meeting." Harrison nodded without taking his eyes off Grace. "Yes. Jennifer, please reschedule. Gentlemen, I apologize, but this is more important." As the investors filed out of the office, Harrison placed his hand on Grace's shoulder. The little girl was shaking, whether from cold or fear he couldn't tell. Probably both. Grace, listen to me very carefully. I'm going to help your mother. But not because you're going to work for me. You're 5 years old. You should be playing and going to school, not worrying about adult problems. But I have to help her, Grace insisted. She's all I have. When Daddy died, Mama took care of me all by herself. She worked 2 jobs and made sure I had food even when she didn't eat. Now it's my turn to take care of her. Harrison felt tears prick his own eyes. This child had more courage and love in her small body than most adults he knew. Your mama is very lucky to have you. Now, I need you to tell me everything. Where's your mother right now? What hospital has she been to? What do the doctors say? Grace wiped her eyes with her small fists. She's at the shelter, sir. She's too sick to get out of bed anymore. Her skin is yellow and she can't eat nothing without throwing up. The free clinic on Maple Street said her kidneys are failing. They said she needs dialysis right away, but we can't afford it. They gave her some pills, but they don't help much. Harrison stood and pulled out his phone. His hands moved quickly across the screen as he made a call. Dr. Reynolds, this is Harrison Blake. I need you to meet me at Mercy Heights Medical Center in 30 minutes. I'm bringing a patient who needs immediate care. Kidney failure. Yes, I'll cover all expenses. Thank you. He turned back to Grace. Jennifer, call my driver. Tell him to bring the car around immediately. Also, call ahead to the shelter on 5th Street. Tell them we're coming to pick up a patient named. He looked at Grace. What's your mother's name? Angela Thompson, sir. Angela Thompson. Tell them we have medical authorization to transport her. And Jennifer, order some clothes for Grace here. Size 5 or 6. And shoes. Have them delivered to the hospital. Jennifer nodded and hurried out of the office. Harrison took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around Grace's trembling shoulders. It was huge on her, hanging down past her knees, but it was warm and dry. Grace, we're going to go get your mama right now. And I want you to listen to me. I'm going to make sure she gets the best medical care available. I'm going to find her a kidney donor. I'm going to pay for everything. Do you understand? Grace's eyes grew wide. But sir, I have to work for you. I have to earn the money. Mama says we don't take charity. She says we earn our way. Harrison knelt down again and looked directly into her eyes. Your mama is right to be proud. But there's a difference between charity and help. When someone you love is in trouble, accepting help is the right thing to do. It's not weak. It's brave. Do you understand? Grace thought about this for a moment, then slowly nodded. Will Mama be okay? I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure she is. Now let's go get her. As they walked out of the office, Grace slipped her small hand into Harrison's large one. He looked down at her and felt something shift in his chest. This little girl had walked for 2 hours in the rain, barefoot, to save her mother. She had pushed past her fear and her pride to ask for help. In that moment, Harrison knew his life was about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Before we continue with Angela's story, I need to ask you something important. How many of us would have the courage that 5-year-old Grace showed? How many of us would walk barefoot through a storm to save someone we love? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe to hear what happens to Grace and her mother. Comment below and tell me, what would you do if you were in Grace's situation? Your support helps us share more stories of hope and love. The black sedan pulled up to the shelter on 5th Street 20 minutes later. Harrison had never been to this part of the city before. The buildings were old and crumbling. Trash littered the sidewalks. People huddled in doorways trying to stay dry from the rain. Grace pressed her face against the window, her hands still clutching Harrison's jacket around her shoulders. That's it, sir. The blue door. She pointed to a faded building with peeling paint. Harrison helped Grace out of the car and they hurried inside. The shelter was crowded with people seeking refuge from the rain. The smell of unwashed bodies and cheap disinfectant filled the air. A tired-looking woman sat at the front desk, barely looking up as they entered. I'm here for Angela Thompson, Harrison said firmly. We have medical authorization to transport her to Mercy Heights Medical Center. The woman's eyes widened when she took in Harrison's expensive suit and confident demeanor. Room 204, second floor. But sir, she's very sick. She might not be able to walk. That's why I brought help. Harrison gestured to his driver and the 2 emergency medical technicians he had called to meet them there. Grace, can you show us which room? Grace nodded and ran ahead, her new shoes squeaking on the linoleum floor. Harrison had stopped at a children's store on the way, refusing to let her stay barefoot another minute. She led them up a narrow staircase to a dimly lit hallway. She pushed open the door to room 204, a tiny space with 4 bunk beds crammed inside. "Mama?" Grace called softly. On the bottom bunk in the corner, a woman lay curled on her side. Even from the doorway, Harrison could see how sick she was. Her beautiful face was gaunt, her skin had a yellowish tint, and her breathing was shallow. But when she heard Grace's voice, her eyes opened, and Harrison saw the same determined spirit he had seen in her daughter. "Grace," Angela whispered, trying to sit up. "Baby, where have you been? I was so worried." Grace ran to her mother's side and took her hand. "Mama, I did something. Don't be mad, okay? I went to see a man who can help us." Angela's eyes focused on Harrison standing in the doorway. Confusion crossed her face. "Who is this?" "Grace, what did you do?" Harrison stepped forward and knelt beside the bed. "Miss Thompson, my name is Harrison Blake. Your daughter came to my office today and asked me for help. She's the bravest little girl I've ever met. I'm here to take you to the hospital. Dr. Patricia Reynolds, the best transplant specialist in the state, is waiting for you right now." Angela's eyes filled with tears. She tried to shake her head. "No, I can't. We can't afford that. Grace, baby, you shouldn't have done this. We don't have money for fancy hospitals." "Mama, please," Grace pleaded, her small voice breaking. "The man said it's not charity. He said accepting help is brave. Please, Mama. I need you. I can't lose you too." Harrison watched as Angela looked at her daughter's face. He saw the moment her resolve crumbled. As a mother, she wanted to refuse help out of pride. But as a mother, she also couldn't leave her daughter alone in this world. "Miss Thompson," Harrison said gently, "I lost my parents when I was 16. I know what it's like to be alone. Please don't let pride make Grace go through that pain. Let me help you. Not because you owe me anything, but because helping people is what I should have been doing with my wealth all along. Your daughter reminded me of that today." Angela's tears spilled over. "I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to. The only thing I ask is that when you're healthy again, you pass this kindness forward to someone else who needs it." Angela nodded slowly. Okay, I'll go." The EMTs moved forward with a stretcher. They helped Angela onto it carefully. She was so weak she could barely lift her arms. Grace held her mother's hand the entire time, walking beside the stretcher as they made their way out of the shelter. In the ambulance, Harrison sat across from Angela while Grace nestled against her mother's side. Angela kept staring at him as if trying to understand why this stranger was helping them. "Mr. Blake," she said softly, "Grace told me she walked to your office in the rain. She told me she begged you for a job. She did. She offered to clean my office, carry papers, organize books. She said she'd work every single day without complaint." Harrison smiled at Grace, who blushed. "I've never met anyone braver. I raised her to be strong," Angela said, pride evident in her weak voice. "After my husband died, I knew I had to teach her to stand up for herself. But I never wanted her to have to be this strong. She's only 5. She should be playing with dolls and learning her ABCs, not worrying about hospitals and kidney transplants." "She does know her ABCs, Mama," Grace said. "And I can count to 100. Remember?" Angela smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. "I remember, baby." Harrison pulled out his phone and made several more calls during the ride. He arranged for a private room at the hospital, ordered a full panel of tests, and scheduled consultations with 3 different specialists. He also called his assistant and asked her to prepare a care package with clothes, toiletries, and toys for Grace. When they arrived at Mercy Heights Medical Center, Dr. Patricia Reynolds was waiting at the emergency entrance with a team of nurses. She was a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes and an efficient manner. "Harrison, good to see you," she said, then turned her attention to Angela. "Miss Thompson, I'm Dr. Reynolds. We're going to take excellent care of you. Can you tell me how long you've been feeling sick?" As they wheeled Angela inside, she began explaining her symptoms. Harrison listened and felt anger rise in his chest. Angela had been sick for over a year. She had ignored her symptoms because she couldn't afford to miss work. When she finally went to a free clinic, they told her she needed dialysis immediately, but there were no open spots at the clinic for months. She had been on a waiting list, growing sicker every day because the system had failed her. This was wrong. This was exactly the kind of injustice Harrison had always known existed but had never directly confronted. Looking at Angela's yellow skin and Grace's frightened face, he made a silent promise. He would not only save Angela's life. He would also make sure no other mother had to suffer like this because of money. They settled Angela into a beautiful private room with large windows overlooking the city. The nurses worked quickly, hooking her up to IVs and monitors. Grace sat in a chair beside the bed, refusing to leave her mother's side even when the nurses tried to take her to the waiting room. Dr. Reynolds pulled Harrison aside after examining Angela. Her kidney function is at about 8%. Normal is between 85 and 100%. She needs to start dialysis immediately. We'll begin tonight. As for a transplant, we need to run tissue typing tests and get her on the national registry. The waiting list for a kidney is typically 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years? Harrison repeated, his voice sharp. She doesn't have that long. What about living donors? That's an option if we can find a match. Family members are usually the best candidates, but Grace mentioned her husband died and she has no other family. We can test friends or volunteers, but finding a compatible match can be difficult. Test me, Harrison said immediately. Dr. Reynolds looked surprised. Harrison, that's very generous, but kidney donation is serious surgery. You need to think about this carefully. I've thought about it. I'm young and healthy. If I'm a match, I want to donate. All right. I'll order the test for you as well. But Harrison, even if you're not a match, there are other options. We can put out a call for donors. We can also look into paired donation programs. Harrison nodded. Do whatever it takes. Money is not an issue. I want Angela to have every possible chance. Over the next few hours, the hospital transformed around Angela. Nurses came and went, drawing blood and running tests. Grace sat quietly watching everything with wide eyes. Harrison ordered food from a nearby restaurant. Soup and bread for Angela, chicken nuggets and apple slices for Grace. When the food arrived, Grace looked at the plate in wonder. Is this all for me? She asked. All for you, Harrison confirmed. Grace ate slowly, savoring every bite. Harrison realized she probably hadn't had a proper meal in days. Maybe weeks. The thought made his stomach turn. When Angela's dialysis began, Grace held her mother's hand and sang her a soft song. Harrison recognized it as an old lullaby. Angela's eyes filled with tears as she listened to her daughter's sweet voice. She used to sing that to me, Angela explained to Harrison. My grandmother taught it to me when I was little. I sang it to Grace when she was a baby. Now she sings it to me. Harrison felt his throat tighten. You've done an amazing job raising her. She's special. She's everything to me. When her father died, I didn't think I could survive. But Grace gave me a reason to keep going. She's so smart and kind. She deserves so much better than this life I've given her. Don't say that. You've given her the most important things, love and strength. Everything else can be fixed. Angela looked at him with gratitude and something else. Something that made Harrison's heart beat faster. He hadn't felt this way about anyone in years. Most of the women he met were interested in his money or his status. But Angela looked at him like he was just a man. A kind man who was helping her when she needed it most. As the evening wore on, Grace fell asleep in the chair, her small body curled up under a hospital blanket. Harrison carefully lifted her and carried her to a small couch in the corner of the room. She didn't wake up, exhausted from her long, frightening day. Thank you, Angela whispered. For everything. I still don't understand why you're doing this, but thank you. Harrison sat down beside her bed. Do you believe in fate, Miss Thompson? Call me Angela, please. And I don't know. Maybe. I think Grace was meant to walk into my office today. I think I was meant to meet both of you. I've spent years building a business empire, accumulating wealth, but never really using it for anything meaningful. Your daughter reminded me what truly matters. She reminded me that kindness is more valuable than any amount of money in the bank. Angela smiled weakly. She's wise beyond her years. Sometimes I forget she's only 5. She's had to grow up too fast. Well, from now on she gets to be a kid again. And you get to focus on getting better. I meant what I said earlier. I'm going to take care of everything. Medical bills, housing, food, whatever you need. And when you're healthy again, I have a job offer for you if you want it. A job? Angela looked confused. I run a charitable foundation as part of my company. It needs someone to manage it, someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone with compassion and integrity. I think you'd be perfect for it. Angela's eyes widened. Mr. Blake, I don't have a college degree. I only finished high school. I've been working retail jobs and cleaning houses to make ends meet. Experience matters more than degrees. And please call me Harrison. Will you at least think about it? Of course I will. Thank you, Harrison. You've given me hope when I had none left. As Angela drifted off to sleep, her hand resting on top of Grace's blanket, Harrison sat in the quiet hospital room and made plans. He would find Angela a kidney donor. He would make sure Grace went to the best school. He would give them the life they deserved. And maybe, just maybe, he would find the family he had been missing since he lost his own parents all those years ago. Morning light streamed through the hospital room windows, casting a soft glow over Angela's sleeping form. Harrison had stayed all night, dozing in a chair by the door. He wanted to make sure they weren't alone, that they knew someone was looking out for them. When he opened his eyes, he found Grace awake, sitting on the couch and watching him curiously. "Good morning," he whispered, not wanting to wake Angela. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," Grace whispered back. "Did you sleep here all night?" "I did. I wanted to make sure you and your mama were okay." Grace climbed down from the couch and walked over to him. She surprised him by climbing into his lap and wrapping her small arms around his neck. "Thank you for helping my mama. You're like an angel." Harrison felt his eyes sting with emotion. He hugged her back gently. "You're the angel, Grace. You saved your mother's life by being brave enough to ask for help." A nurse came in to check Angela's vitals, smiling at the sight of Harrison and Grace. "Good morning. How's our patient doing?" "She had a good night," the nurse reported. "The dialysis helped quite a bit. Her numbers are already looking better. Dr. Reynolds will be by this morning to discuss the test results." When Angela woke up, she looked more alert than she had the day before. The yellow tint in her skin was slightly less pronounced, and she managed to sit up without help. She smiled when she saw Grace sitting with Harrison, the two of them reading a picture book that the hospital staff had provided. "Mama," Grace called excitedly. "Mr. Harrison is teaching me new words." "That's wonderful, baby." Angela's voice was stronger. "Good morning, Harrison. I can't believe you stayed all night." "Where else would I be?" he replied simply. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Still tired and achy, but better. The dialysis helped." Over the next few days, a routine developed. Harrison came to the hospital every morning before work and returned every evening. He brought breakfast for Grace, flowers for Angela, and always stayed to talk with them for hours. Grace began to light up when she heard his footsteps in the hallway, running to greet him at the door. Dr. Reynolds ran a full battery of tests on Angela. The results confirmed what they already knew: she needed a kidney transplant as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the initial compatibility test showed that Harrison was not a match. He was disappointed but not deterred. "We'll find another way," he assured Angela. "Dr. Reynolds has already put you on the transplant list and reached out to potential living donors. We've also started a donor recruitment campaign." "A campaign?" Angela asked, confused. "I put together a team to spread awareness about kidney donation. We're running ads, hosting information sessions, and working with local hospitals to identify potential donors. Money can't buy a kidney, but it can help us find someone who's willing to give one." Angela shook her head in wonder. "I still can't believe you're doing all this for us." "Believe it? You and Grace are worth every effort." During her recovery periods between dialysis sessions, Angela began to tell Harrison more about her life. She had met her husband, Thomas, in high school. They married young and had Grace right away. Thomas worked as a mechanic and Angela worked in a department store. They were happy despite having little money. Then 2 years ago, Thomas died in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit his car head-on. He died instantly. "I fell apart," Angela admitted one evening as Grace played with toys on the floor. "I couldn't eat or sleep. I couldn't function. But then I looked at Grace and I knew I had to be strong for her. Thomas would have wanted me to take care of our daughter." "He would be so proud of you," Harrison said. "You've done an incredible job raising her alone." "I tried my best. But then I got sick and everything fell apart. I lost my job because I kept missing work. We lost our apartment because I couldn't pay rent. We ended up at the shelter and I felt like such a failure." "You're not a failure. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met." As the days passed, Harrison found himself thinking about Angela and Grace constantly. When he was at work, he wondered what they were doing. When he was in meetings, he found himself distracted, checking his phone for updates from the hospital. His business partner, James Mitchell, noticed the change in him. "Blake, you've been different lately," James said one afternoon in Harrison's office. "I've known you for 10 years and I've never seen you like this. What's going on?" Harrison told him everything. About Grace bursting into his office, about Angela's illness, about how he couldn't stop thinking about them. James listened quietly, then smiled. "You're in love with her," James said simply. "What?" "No, I'm just helping someone in need." "Blake, you've helped plenty of people over the years. You've written checks to charities. You've sponsored scholarships. But I've never seen you personally involved like this. You're at that hospital every day. You light up when you talk about them. You're in love. Harrison started to protest, then stopped. Was James right? He thought about Angela's smile, the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed despite her illness. He thought about Grace's innocent joy, her boundless hope. He thought about how complete he felt when he was with them. Maybe you're right, he admitted. But it doesn't matter. Angela is going through a medical crisis. The last thing she needs is me complicating things with my feelings. Or maybe, James suggested, knowing that someone cares about her will help her get better. Love is powerful medicine, Blake. Don't underestimate that. That evening, Harrison arrived at the hospital with a special surprise. He had hired a professional storyteller to come and perform for Grace. The woman brought puppets and props, and she acted out several classic fairy tales. Grace was mesmerized, laughing and clapping throughout the performance. Angela watched her daughter's joy with tears in her eyes. After the storyteller left, Grace hugged Harrison tightly. That was the best day ever. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. You're very welcome, sweetheart. You deserve to have fun and be happy. Later, after Grace fell asleep, Angela and Harrison sat together in the quiet room. The machines beeped softly in the background, a steady rhythm that had become familiar. Harrison, can I ask you something? Angela said. Anything. Why are you really doing all this? I mean, I'm grateful beyond words, but I need to understand. Is this some kind of project for you? A good deed to make yourself feel better? Harrison thought carefully about his answer. At first, maybe it was partly that. I saw a little girl in desperate need and I had the power to help. It felt right. But now... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Now it's because I care about you. Both of you. I look forward to coming here every day. I think about you constantly. Grace has become like a daughter to me, and you've become very important to me. Angela looked at him with surprise and something that might have been hope. Harrison, I appreciate everything you've done. But you should know that I come with complications. I'm sick. I have a child. I have no money or education. I'm not the kind of woman a man like you usually spends time with. You're exactly the kind of woman I want to spend time with. You're real. You're honest. You're strong and kind and beautiful. Grace is not a complication. She's a blessing. And as for the rest, none of it matters to me. But what happens when I'm better? What happens when we don't need your help anymore? Will you still be around? Harrison reached out and took her hand. Angela, I hope I'll be around for a long time. If you'll let me. Angela squeezed his hand. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. The next morning, Dr. Reynolds came in with news. We have a potential donor, she announced. A woman named Rebecca Foster saw our campaign. She's a perfect match for you, Angela. She's willing to donate her kidney. Angela burst into tears. Grace jumped up and down with excitement. Harrison felt relief wash over him like a wave. When can we do the surgery? He asked. We need to run a few more tests on both Angela and Rebecca to make sure everything is safe. But if all goes well, we could schedule the transplant for 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, Angela could have a new kidney and a new chance at life. Harrison pulled out his phone and immediately began making arrangements. He would hire the best surgical team. He would make sure Angela had the best post-operative care. He would spare no expense to ensure her complete recovery. That evening, he brought Chinese food for dinner, Grace's favorite. They ate together in the hospital room, using the small table by the window. Grace chattered happily about the school Harrison had enrolled her in, excited to start next month. Angela looked healthier than she had since they arrived, hope bringing color back to her face. I've been thinking, Angela said as they finished eating, about that job you offered me. Managing your foundation. If the offer is still open, I'd like to accept it. Harrison grinned. The offer is absolutely still open. In fact, I've been working on some ideas for new programs we could implement. Programs to help families like yours who fall through the cracks of the healthcare system. I'd love to help with that. I know what it's like to need help and not know where to turn. Maybe we can make it easier for others. We will make it easier. Together. As Harrison left the hospital that night, he felt lighter than he had in years. He had found something precious in the most unexpected place. He had found a family. And in 2 weeks, when Angela had her surgery, they would take the next step toward building a life together. The 2 weeks before Angela's surgery flew by in a blur of activity. Harrison arranged for the best surgical team in the country to perform the transplant. He personally met with Rebecca Foster, the donor, to thank her for her extraordinary gift. Rebecca was a schoolteacher in her 30s who had heard about Angela's story and felt compelled to help. I lost my own mother to kidney disease when I was young, Rebecca explained. I couldn't help her, but I can help Angela. That's all that matters to me. Harrison made sure Rebecca's medical expenses were covered and set up a fund to compensate her for lost work time during recovery. He also arranged for flowers to be sent to her room every day after the surgery. During those 2 weeks, Harrison spent every free moment with Angela and Grace. He read bedtime stories to Grace, bringing a different book each night. He taught her to play simple card games and helped her practice writing her name. For Angela, he brought magazines, music, and endless conversation. They talked about everything: childhood memories, favorite foods, dreams for the future. "What did you want to be when you grew up?" Harrison asked one afternoon as they sat by the window watching the city below. "A teacher," Angela said with a nostalgic smile. "I loved school. I was good at it too. But after I got pregnant with Grace, I had to drop out of college. Thomas and I needed money immediately, so I started working full-time. I always told myself I'd go back someday and finish my degree." "You still can," Harrison said. "Once you're recovered and settled into your new job, if you want to take classes, I'll support that." "You do that?" Angela's eyes widened. "Of course. Education is important. Besides, I think you'd make an excellent teacher someday if that's what you want." Grace loved hearing her mother laugh again. The little girl's entire world had brightened since coming to the hospital. She no longer looked pale and frightened. Instead, she glowed with happiness, chattering constantly about all the things she wanted to do when her mama was better. "We're going to go to the park," Grace announced one day, counting on her fingers. "And the library. And the zoo. And we're going to have picnics with Mr. Harrison. And maybe we can get a dog." "Can we get a dog, Mama?" Angela laughed. "We'll see, baby. One step at a time." Harrison made a mental note to look into getting them a dog once they were settled. He had already arranged for them to move into a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. The place came fully furnished, and he had hired an interior designer to make it warm and welcoming, especially Grace's room, which was decorated in shades of pink and purple with bookshelves full of children's books. On the day before the surgery, Harrison's business partner James came to visit. He brought gifts for Grace, a stuffed teddy bear and a coloring book with crayons. Grace thanked him politely and immediately began coloring, her tongue sticking out in concentration as she worked. James pulled Harrison aside. "Blake, I wanted to meet the family that's captured your heart." "I can see why. They're wonderful." "They are," Harrison agreed. "Grace is the bravest kid I've ever met, and Angela is incredible. She's been through so much, but she never gave up." "She's also beautiful," James noted. "And the way she looks at you, Blake. She's falling for you too." Harrison felt his chest tighten with emotion. "I hope so. I want to be part of their lives for a long time." "Have you thought about what comes after the surgery? Assuming everything goes well." "I've thought about little else. I want to take things slowly. Let Angela recover fully. Let Grace adjust to her new school. But eventually, I want to tell Angela how I really feel about her. I want to ask if she could see a future with me." James clapped him on the shoulder. "I think you already know the answer to that question. Just don't wait too long. Life is short. Love is precious. Don't waste time." That night, Angela was nervous about the surgery. She tried to hide it for Grace's sake, but Harrison could see the fear in her eyes. After Grace fell asleep, he sat beside Angela's bed and took her hand. "Talk to me," he said gently. "What are you afraid of?" "Everything," Angela admitted. "What if something goes wrong during surgery? What if my body rejects the kidney? What if I die and leave Grace alone?" "None of that is going to happen. You're going to be fine." "You can't promise that." "You're right, I can't. But I can promise that if anything happens, Grace will never be alone. I'll take care of her like she's my own daughter. She'll never want for anything, including love." Angela's tears spilled over. "That's what scares me most. Not dying but leaving her. She's already lost her father. I can't bear the thought of her losing me too." Harrison moved to sit on the edge of her bed and pulled her into his arms. She clung to him, her body shaking with sobs. He held her tightly, stroking her hair, murmuring words of comfort. "You're not going to leave her. You're going to get through this surgery and you're going to watch her grow up. You're going to see her first day of school, her graduation, her wedding. You're going to be there for all of it. I believe that with everything in me." Angela pulled back and looked at him. Her eyes were red and swollen, but they were also full of something deeper. "Why are you so good to us? I keep waiting for the catch, for the moment when you ask for something in return. But it never comes. There is no catch. I care about you, Angela. I care about both of you more than I've cared about anyone in a very long time." "I care about you too," she whispered. "Maybe too much. I keep telling myself it's too soon, that it's not real, that I'm just grateful. But it feels like more than that. It is more than that, Harrison said. For both of us. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But she didn't. Instead, she met him halfway. Their lips touched in a gentle, tender kiss that felt like a promise. When they pulled apart, Angela was smiling through her tears. Get some rest, Harrison said. Tomorrow is going to be a big day, but it's going to be a good day. Trust me. The next morning, the surgical team arrived early. Grace woke up crying, scared about her mother going into surgery. Harrison held her while the nurses prepared Angela for transport to the operating room. Mama's going to be okay, right, Mr. Harrison? Grace asked, her small voice trembling. Your mama is going to be just fine. The doctors are the best in the country. And when she wakes up, she's going to have a brand new kidney that will make her healthy again. Angela was wheeled out on a gurney. She reached for Grace's hand one last time. I love you, baby girl. Be brave for me. I love you too, Mama. I'll be so brave. Harrison carried Grace to the surgical waiting room. For the next 6 hours they waited. Harrison held Grace while she napped, read to her when she was awake, and brought her snacks from the cafeteria. James arrived mid-morning to keep them company, bringing more coloring books and puzzles to keep Grace occupied. Dr. Reynolds finally emerged from the operating room with a smile on her face. The surgery was a complete success. Angela is in recovery now. The kidney is functioning beautifully. We'll monitor her closely for the next few days, but all signs point to a perfect outcome. Harrison felt tears of relief stream down his face. He hugged Grace tightly as she squealed with joy. Mama's okay. Mama's going to be okay. They waited another hour before they were allowed to see Angela. She was still groggy from anesthesia, but she was awake and smiling. Grace climbed carefully onto the bed beside her mother, and Angela wrapped one arm around her daughter. Hi, baby, Angela whispered. Hi, Mama. I was so brave, just like you said. I knew you would be. Angela looked at Harrison, standing at the foot of the bed. Thank you. Thank you for everything. No thanks needed. I'm just glad you're okay. Over the next few days, Angela recovered rapidly. The new kidney worked perfectly, filtering toxins from her blood and bringing her energy back. The yellow tint disappeared from her skin. She was able to eat without getting sick. Her eyes brightened with health and hope. Harrison visited every day, bringing flowers and good cheer. He also brought updates about the apartment he had prepared for them and the start date for Grace's new school. Everything was falling into place perfectly. 1 week after the surgery, Dr. Reynolds cleared Angela to be discharged. You're doing remarkably well, the doctor said. Continue with your medications, come back for regular checkups, but otherwise you're free to resume your normal life. Normal life. Angela almost laughed at the phrase. Her life would never be normal again. It would be better than normal. It would be extraordinary. On discharge day, Harrison arrived with a car to take them to their new home. Grace bounced with excitement, cluttering about seeing her new room. Angela moved slowly, still recovering from surgery but growing stronger every day. When they pulled up to the apartment building, Angela gasped. It was in a beautiful neighborhood with tree-lined streets and parks nearby. The building itself was modern and well-maintained, nothing like the shabby places they had lived before. Harrison led them to the 3rd floor and opened the door to apartment 3B. Angela stepped inside and felt tears spring to her eyes. The space was beautiful. Hardwood floors, large windows letting in natural light, comfortable furniture in warm blues and greens. The kitchen was fully stocked with food. Fresh flowers sat on the dining table. Grace, come see your room, Harrison said, leading the little girl down the hallway. Grace's shriek of delight echoed through the apartment. Angela followed and found her daughter standing in the middle of a perfect little girl's room. The walls were painted soft pink. A white bed with a purple comforter sat against one wall. Shelves full of books and toys lined another wall. A small desk with art supplies waited for her to use. A large stuffed unicorn sat on the bed. Is this really mine? Grace asked in wonder. All yours, Harrison confirmed. Grace ran to hug him. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. This is the best room in the whole world. Angela explored the rest of the apartment with Harrison. Her own bedroom was spacious and lovely, decorated in calming colors. The bathroom had a large tub where she could soak and relax. The living room had a comfortable couch perfect for reading and a television for movie nights. Harrison, I don't know what to say. This is too much. It's not too much. It's exactly what you and Grace deserve. A safe, comfortable home where you can build your new life. Angela turned to face him, her heart full of emotions she could barely contain. I can't believe this is real. A few weeks ago I was dying in a shelter. Now I have a new kidney, a beautiful home, and... She paused, looking into his eyes. And you? How did I get so lucky? I'm the lucky one, Harrison said softly. You and Grace have given me something I didn't even know I was missing. A purpose. A family. A reason to smile every day. They stood close together, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. Grace's happy singing drifted from her bedroom, a soundtrack to their moment. What happens now? Angela asked. Now you rest and recover. You start your new job in a month. Grace starts school in 2 weeks. And we continue getting to know each other. We take things one day at a time. I'd like that. One day at a time sounds perfect. As the sun set that evening, casting golden light through the apartment windows, Angela watched Harrison and Grace build a tower out of blocks in the living room. Grace's laughter filled the space. Harrison's genuine smile lit up his face. Angela felt her heart swell with love for both of them. For the first time in 2 years since Thomas died, she felt whole again. She felt hope for the future. She felt grateful for every moment. And she knew with absolute certainty that her life was about to become more beautiful than she ever imagined possible. 2 weeks after moving into their new apartment, Grace started at Riverside Academy. The private school was everything Harrison had promised. Small classes, dedicated teachers, and a nurturing environment. On her first day, Grace wore a bright red dress that Angela had bought with money from the stipend Harrison had set up for them. Her hair was styled in neat braids with matching red ribbons. Mama, what if the other kids don't like me? Grace asked nervously as they prepared to leave. Angela knelt down to her daughter's level. Baby, you are smart, kind, and wonderful. Anyone would be lucky to be your friend. Just be yourself. Harrison had arranged to take the morning off to drive them to school. He arrived at their apartment building dressed in a dark blue suit, carrying a special first day of school gift. A brand new backpack filled with supplies and a lunchbox shaped like a unicorn. For my favorite student, he said, presenting them to Grace. Grace's eyes went wide with delight. Mr. Harrison, I love it. Thank you so much. At the school, they met Grace's teacher, Miss Patricia Wells, a warm woman in her 50s who immediately made Grace feel comfortable. The classroom was bright and colorful, filled with books, art supplies, and learning materials. Other children were arriving with their parents, and Grace watched them shyly. Grace, why don't you go explore the reading corner? Ms. Wells suggested. We have some wonderful new books about animals. Grace looked at her mother for permission. Angela nodded encouragingly. Go ahead, baby. I'll be right here. As Grace walked over to the books, another little girl approached her. Hi, I'm Sophie. Do you like unicorns? I saw your lunchbox. I love unicorns, Grace said, her face brightening. They're magical. We can be friends then. I love unicorns too. Angela felt tears of joy as she watched her daughter make her first friend. Harrison squeezed her hand gently. See? She's going to be just fine. When it was time to leave, Grace waved goodbye bravely, already engaged in conversation with Sophie and 2 other children. Angela and Harrison walked out of the school together, and Angela finally let her tears fall. Happy tears, she assured Harrison. I'm just so grateful. A month ago, I didn't think Grace would ever have opportunities like this. Now she's at one of the best schools in the city, making friends, getting the education she deserves. She deserves all of this and more. So do you. They went to a nearby cafe for coffee. As they sat by the window watching people pass by, Angela talked about starting her new job at the Blake Foundation in 2 weeks. She was nervous but excited. What if I'm not good enough? What if I don't know how to run a foundation? She worried. You'll be perfect, Harrison assured her. You understand what it's like to need help. You have compassion and insight that no amount of education can teach. The rest you'll learn. And I'll be there to help you every step of the way. Will you really? Even after I start working? I thought maybe once I was employed and settled, you might move on with your life. Harrison reached across the table and took both her hands in his. Angela, I don't want to move on. I want you in my life. I want Grace in my life. These past weeks with you have been the happiest I've been in years. I feel the same way, Angela admitted. I keep waiting to wake up and find this was all a dream. You're too good to be true. I'm not perfect. I work too much. I can be stubborn. I don't always know how to express my feelings. But I know how I feel about you, and I know I want to explore where this relationship can go. Over the next 2 weeks, Harrison and Angela fell into an easy rhythm. He came for dinner at the apartment several times a week. They cooked together in the kitchen, laughing as they taught each other their favorite recipes. Grace loved having them both there, creating the family she had missed since her father died. Harrison took them on outings on the weekends. They went to the zoo, where Grace squealed with delight at the elephants and monkeys. They visited the Children's Museum, where Grace learned about science and art. They had picnics in the park, spreading out a blanket under a large oak tree and eating sandwiches while Grace chased butterflies. During one of these picnics, Grace asked the question that had been on her mind for weeks. "Mr. Harrison, are you my mama's boyfriend?" Angela choked on her lemonade while Harrison tried not to laugh. "Well, Grace, your mama and I care about each other very much. Would you be okay if I was her boyfriend?" Grace thought about this seriously. "Yes, I think so. You make mama smile and you're nice to me. Plus you give good hugs. Those are important things for a boyfriend." "I'm glad I meet your standards," Harrison said with a grin. "But Mr. Harrison, if you're mama's boyfriend, does that mean you might become my new daddy someday?" Angela's face turned red. "Grace, that's not something we need to think about right now." But Harrison didn't look uncomfortable. Instead he looked thoughtful. "Grace, your father was a special man who loved you very much. Nobody can ever replace him. But if your mama and I continue to care about each other, and if she agrees, I would be honored to be part of your family. Not as a replacement for your daddy, but as someone who loves you and wants to help take care of you." Grace considered this, then nodded. "Okay, that sounds good. I miss my daddy, but I think he would like you. You're kind like he was." Angela wiped tears from her eyes. Harrison reached over and squeezed her hand. In that moment, sitting in the park with the sun shining and Grace playing nearby, Angela felt complete happiness for the first time since Thomas died. On Angela's first day at the Blake Foundation, Harrison personally gave her a tour of the offices. The foundation occupied an entire floor of Blake Tower, with a staff of 15 people managing various charitable programs. Angela's office was spacious and bright, with a view of the city. "Your main job will be to oversee the medical assistance program," Harrison explained. "We help families who can't afford medical care, similar to what you experienced. You'll review applications, work with hospitals to arrange treatment, and follow up with families to make sure they're getting the support they need." Angela felt a surge of purpose. "I can't wait to start. To help other families like mine. To make sure no other little girl has to walk barefoot through the rain to beg for help." Harrison smiled. "That's exactly why you're perfect for this job. You have the heart for it." Angela threw herself into the work with passion. She reviewed applications late into the night, her heart breaking for each family's story. She personally called hospitals to negotiate better rates. She met with families to understand their needs beyond just medical care, arranging for food assistance, housing support, and educational opportunities for children. Within her first month, Angela helped 12 families get the medical care they needed. She expanded the program to include mental health services, recognizing that many people struggled emotionally after facing medical crises. She started a support group for mothers dealing with chronic illness, creating a community where women could share their experiences and encourage each other. Harrison watched her work with pride and admiration. She was a natural leader, compassionate yet efficient. The staff loved her. The families she helped sang her praises. And every day Harrison fell more in love with her. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Harrison took Angela to dinner at an elegant restaurant downtown. They sat at a table by the window, candles flickering between them, the city lights twinkling outside. "I have something to tell you," Harrison said nervously. Angela set down her wine glass. "That sounds serious." "It is serious. These past months with you and Grace have been the best of my life. I wake up every morning excited to see you. I think about you constantly. When I'm in meetings, I find myself checking my phone for messages from you. When I see something funny, my first thought is to share it with you. You've become essential to my happiness." Angela felt her heart race. "Harrison, I feel the same way. You've given us so much more than just medical care and financial support. You've given us hope. You've given us love. You've made me believe in goodness again." Harrison reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Angela gasped. "Angela, I know we haven't been together very long in the traditional sense. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. I love Grace. I want to spend my life making you both happy." He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring, simple yet elegant. "Angela Thompson, will you marry me?" Angela's hands flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. For a moment she couldn't speak. Then she nodded, words finally tumbling out. "Yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Harrison slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. Around them, other diners applauded, but Angela barely noticed. All she could think about was how far they had come, from that desperate day when Grace walked into Harrison's office to this perfect moment. "We need to tell Grace," Angela said, laughing through her tears. "Let's go right now." They left the restaurant and drove to the apartment where Harrison's assistant was babysitting Grace. When they walked in, Grace was in her pajamas reading a book on the couch. "Mama, Mr. Harrison, you're home early," she said, jumping up. "Grace, we have something to tell you," Angela said, kneeling down. "Mr. Harrison asked me to marry him and I said yes. How do you feel about that?" Grace's eyes grew wide. She looked from her mother to Harrison and back again. Then her face broke into the biggest smile they had ever seen. "Really? We're going to be a real family?" "A real family," Harrison confirmed, scooping her up into his arms. Grace threw her arms around his neck. "I'm so happy. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a pretty dress? Can I throw flowers?" "You can absolutely be in the wedding," Angela said. "You'll be my flower girl." That night, the three of them sat together on the couch, making plans for their future. Grace chattered excitedly about the wedding, suggesting ideas like butterflies and unicorns and lots of cake. Angela and Harrison exchanged amused glances over her head, both thinking the same thing. This was perfect. This was everything they needed. As Angela tucked Grace into bed later, the little girl hugged her tightly. "Mama, is it okay that I'm happy? I still miss Daddy, but I'm happy about Mr. Harrison too. Does that make me bad?" "Oh baby, no. Your daddy would want you to be happy. He would want us both to be happy. He loved us, and love means wanting the best for people even when you're gone. Mr. Harrison is good to us. He loves us. Daddy would approve." "Okay, Mama. I think so too." After Grace fell asleep, Angela and Harrison stood in the doorway of her room, watching her peaceful face. "We're really doing this," Angela whispered. "We're getting married. We're becoming a family." "We're already a family," Harrison corrected. "The wedding just makes it official." He wrapped his arms around her, and they stood there in the quiet apartment, full of hope and love and endless possibility. Their journey had started with a desperate plea from a 5-year-old girl. Now it was blossoming into something beautiful beyond imagination. I have to pause the story here for just a moment to ask, have you ever witnessed a moment when everything comes together perfectly? When love wins and hope transforms lives? If Grace's courage and Harrison's kindness have touched your heart, please subscribe to see how their story continues. Comment below and tell me what you think will happen at their wedding. Your support means everything. Planning a wedding while managing a demanding job and raising an active 5-year-old turned out to be more complicated than Angela expected. She wanted the day to be perfect, but she also didn't want to go overboard. Harrison, however, had different ideas. "Angela, money is not an issue," he said one Saturday morning as they looked through wedding magazines at the apartment. "I want you to have the wedding of your dreams." "But I don't need anything extravagant," Angela protested. "I just want something simple and beautiful with the people we care about." Harrison smiled. "Then that's exactly what we'll do. Simple and beautiful. But let me handle the details. I want you to enjoy this process, not stress about it." He hired a wedding planner named Christine Lopez, a cheerful woman in her 40s who immediately understood Angela's vision. They decided on an outdoor ceremony in a beautiful garden venue, with the reception in an elegant pavilion overlooking a lake. The date was set for 6 months away, giving Angela plenty of time to recover fully from her surgery and settle into her new life. Grace was involved in every decision. She helped choose flowers. She insisted on roses and daisies, her two favorites. She helped pick out bridesmaid dresses. She wanted them to be purple, her favorite color after pink. She even helped Harrison choose his tie, selecting a deep blue one that matched his eyes. The months leading up to the wedding flew by in a blur of happiness. Angela continued to excel at her job, earning respect from everyone at the foundation. She expanded the medical assistance program to include dental care and vision services, recognizing that complete health required more than just treating major illnesses. Grace thrived at Riverside Academy. Her teacher reported that she was one of the brightest students in the class, reading at a level far above her peers. She made several close friends, including Sophie, who came over for playdates at least once a week. The two girls were inseparable, creating elaborate games involving unicorns, princesses, and magical kingdoms. Harrison formally adopted Grace 3 months before the wedding. The day they went to court, Grace wore her favorite green dress and held both her mother's and Harrison's hands tightly. When the judge declared that Harrison was now legally Grace's father, the little girl burst into happy tears. "I have a daddy again," she whispered. "You always had a daddy in heaven who loves you," Harrison said, kneeling down to her level. "Now you have me too. And I promise to love you, protect you, and be there for you for the rest of my life." Angela couldn't stop crying through the entire proceeding. Watching Harrison commit to Grace so completely filled her heart to overflowing. She had been terrified of being alone, of raising Grace without a partner. Now she had Harrison, who loved her daughter as if she were his own flesh and blood. That evening they celebrated at Grace's favorite restaurant, a family-friendly place with amazing pizza and a small arcade. Grace played games while Angela and Harrison sat at a booth, holding hands across the table. "I never thought I could love someone the way I love you," Harrison admitted. "I dated before but it never felt like this. You've changed everything for me. You've changed everything for us too. You saved my life, Harrison. Not just literally with the kidney transplant but in every way that matters. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed Grace that the world has good people in it. You taught us both that it's okay to accept help and love. I needed that lesson too. Before I met you and Grace I was just going through the motions. Building a business, making money but never really feeling alive. You both woke me up. You made me remember what matters." They talked about the future. Where they would live after the wedding. Harrison suggested buying a house with a yard where Grace could play. Whether they wanted more children, both agreed they did eventually, and how they would balance their careers with family life. "I want our home to be full of love and laughter," Angela said. "I want Grace to grow up knowing she's cherished. And if we have more children, I want them to grow up with the same security and happiness." "We'll make that happen," Harrison promised. Together. As the wedding day approached, Angela experienced moments of anxiety. Not about marrying Harrison, she had no doubts about that. But she worried about being a good enough wife, about fitting into his world of wealth and influence, about maintaining her sense of self while joining her life with his. One evening, 2 weeks before the wedding, she confessed these fears to Harrison. They were sitting on the balcony of her apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "What if I embarrass you at business functions? What if I say the wrong thing or wear the wrong outfit? Your world is so different from what I'm used to." Harrison turned to face her fully. "Angela, I fell in love with you exactly as you are. I don't want you to change to fit some image of what you think a wealthy man's wife should be. I want you to be yourself, honest, compassionate, real. Those qualities are worth more than any amount of polish or pretense. But what about your business partners? Your social circle? What will they think? The people who matter will love you. The ones who don't aren't worth worrying about. Besides, I've already introduced you to James and he thinks you're wonderful. The rest will follow his lead, or they'll find themselves excluded from my life." Angela leaned into him, feeling reassured. "I'm scared of messing this up. You and Grace are everything to me. I couldn't bear to lose this." "You're not going to lose this. We're in this together for better or worse. That's what marriage means." The week before the wedding, Angela's nerves reached their peak. She couldn't sleep, worrying about details. What if it rained? What if Grace had a meltdown during the ceremony? What if she tripped walking down the aisle? Harrison finally sat her down and held her hands. "Listen to me. None of those details matter. The only thing that matters is that we're committing our lives to each other. Rain or shine, perfect or imperfect, we're going to stand up in front of the people we love and promise to be together forever. That's what's important. Not the flowers or the weather or whether everything goes according to plan." His words calmed her. He was right. The wedding was just one day. The marriage was forever. The night before the wedding, Angela stayed at the apartment with Grace while Harrison stayed at his penthouse downtown. It was tradition not to see each other before the ceremony, and though Angela missed him, she cherished the quiet evening with her daughter. They ate ice cream for dinner, broke the rules and giggled about it. They painted each other's nails. Grace chose sparkly pink for both of them. They talked about the next day, about how Grace would walk down the aisle scattering rose petals, how beautiful everything would be. "Mama, are you happy?" Grace asked as Angela tucked her into bed. "I'm so happy, baby. Are you?" "Yes. I like having Mr. Harrison as my daddy. He's nice and he makes you smile. Daddy would like him too." Angela felt tears prick her eyes. "I think Daddy would like him very much. Daddy would be happy that we're being taken care of and loved. Do you think Daddy will be at the wedding? Like watching from heaven?" "I know he will be. He'll be smiling down on us, grateful that we found someone who loves us so much." Grace thought about this and nodded. "Okay. That makes me feel better. Good night, Mama." Good night, my beautiful girl. That night, Angela lay awake thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The pain of losing Thomas. The terror of her illness. The desperation that had driven Grace to walk into a stranger's office begging for help. The miracle of Harrison's kindness. The surgery that saved her life. The love that had blossomed unexpectedly. Life was strange and wonderful. Terrible things happened, but beautiful things could follow. Darkness gave way to light. Despair transformed into hope. And sometimes, in the midst of your worst moment, your greatest blessing walked through the door. Angela closed her eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude. For her health. For Grace. For Harrison. For second chances and new beginnings. For love that healed broken hearts and made families out of strangers. Tomorrow she would marry the man who had saved her life in every way possible. And she would do so with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Angela woke up on her wedding day to bright sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. For a moment she lay still, listening to the sounds of the city waking up outside. Then reality hit her and she sat up with a gasp. Today was the day. Today she was marrying Harrison. Grace burst into the room moments later, already dressed in her pajamas, bouncing with excitement. Mama, it's your wedding day. Wake up, we have so much to do. Angela laughed and pulled her daughter into bed with her. Good morning, my little flower girl. Are you ready for today? I've been ready forever. Can we have pancakes for breakfast? The wedding planner lady said we could have whatever we want. Christine, the wedding planner, arrived at 8 o'clock with a team of people. A hairstylist, a makeup artist, and 2 assistants to help with various tasks. The apartment transformed into a whirlwind of activity. Grace got her hair styled first, her braids woven with tiny white flowers that made her look like a princess. She wore a beautiful purple dress with a full skirt that swished when she spun around. Angela's transformation took longer. The hairstylist created an elegant updo with soft curls framing her face. The makeup artist enhanced her natural beauty without overdoing it, giving her a radiant glow. And then came the dress. Angela had chosen a simple but stunning gown in ivory silk. It had a fitted bodice with delicate lace sleeves and a flowing skirt that moved like water when she walked. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like a bride from a magazine, except this was real. This was her life. Mama, you're so pretty, Grace breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Thank you, baby. You're pretty too. At the garden venue, Harrison was having his own morning of preparation. He wore a charcoal gray suit with the blue tie Grace had helped him pick out. James stood beside him as his best man, helping him with his cufflinks. Nervous? James asked. Not even a little bit, Harrison replied. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Angela's a lucky woman. But you're lucky too. She's special, Blake. Don't ever take that for granted. I won't. I promise you that. The ceremony was set to begin at 4 o'clock. Guests began arriving at 3:30, taking their seats in white chairs arranged in rows facing an archway covered in roses and daisies. There weren't many people, about 50 total, but they were the ones who mattered. Harrison's business associates and close friends. Angela's co-workers from the foundation. Grace's teacher and a few of her school friends with their parents. Rebecca Foster, the kidney donor, sat in the front row, tears already in her eyes. When it was time to begin, soft music started playing. Grace walked down the aisle first, carefully scattering rose petals from a small basket. She took her job very seriously, making sure to distribute the petals evenly. When she reached the front, she stood beside Harrison and whispered, I did good, right, Daddy? Harrison's heart swelled at hearing her call him Daddy. You did perfect, sweetheart. Then the music changed, and Angela appeared at the entrance of the garden. Harrison's breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful beyond words, walking toward him with a radiant smile on her face. Because she had no father to walk her down the aisle, she had chosen to walk alone, symbolizing how she had survived and grown strong on her own before meeting Harrison. As she approached, Harrison stepped forward to meet her halfway. He offered his arm, and together they walked to the archway where the officiant waited. Angela's hands trembled slightly, and Harrison squeezed them reassuringly. The officiant, a kind-faced minister named Reverend Thompson, began the ceremony. We are gathered here today to witness the union of Angela and Harrison. Their love story is one of courage, compassion, and hope. It reminds us that the best things in life often come when we least expect them. He spoke about love and commitment, about building a life together through joy and hardship. Then it was time for the vows. Harrison went first, his voice steady and full of emotion. Angela, the day Grace walked into my office, my life changed forever. She brought you into my world and nothing has been the same since. You've taught me what truly matters. Love, family, kindness. You've made me a better man. I promise to love you with everything I am. I promise to be there for you in grace, in sickness and health, in good times and bad. I promise to honor you, cherish you, and build a beautiful life with you. You are my heart, my home, my everything. Angela's tears flowed freely as she listened. Then it was her turn. Her voice shook with emotion, but she spoke from her heart. Harrison, when I was at my lowest point, dying and desperate, you appeared like an answer to prayers I didn't even know how to pray. You saved my life, but more than that, you showed me that goodness still exists in the world. You loved my daughter as your own. You gave us hope when we had none. I promise to love you with all that I am. I promise to stand beside you, support your dreams, and build a family with you. I promise to cherish every moment we have together. You are my miracle, my love, my forever. Reverend Thompson smiled through his own tears. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Harrison, you may kiss your bride. Harrison cupped Angela's face in his hands and kissed her tenderly. The small crowd erupted in applause. Grace jumped up and down, clapping harder than anyone. When Harrison and Angela broke apart, they turned to Grace and pulled her into a family hug. We're a family now, Harrison said. The three of us, forever. The reception was perfect. Dinner was served at beautifully decorated tables overlooking the lake. The food was delicious. Roasted chicken, fresh vegetables, and wedding cake that Grace had helped design. It had 3 tiers with sugar flowers and small unicorn decorations. Harrison gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. A few months ago, I was just a businessman focused on building an empire. Then a 5-year-old girl walked into my office, barefoot and desperate, and changed everything. Grace, thank you for being brave enough to ask for help. Angela, thank you for teaching me what love really means. I am the luckiest man alive. James gave a toast about friendship and finding unexpected love. Rebecca Foster spoke about the joy of being part of their story. Even Grace got to say a few words, thanking everyone for coming and declaring that this was the best day ever. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the lake, Harrison and Angela had their first dance. They swayed together to a soft, romantic song, lost in their own world. Angela rested her head on Harrison's shoulder, feeling completely at peace. Are you happy? Harrison whispered in her ear. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied. Good. Because this is just the beginning. We have a whole lifetime ahead of us. After their dance, Harrison danced with Grace, spinning her around until she giggled uncontrollably. Angela danced with James. The guests danced and celebrated into the evening. It was everything a wedding should be, joyful, heartfelt, and full of love. As the evening wound down, Harrison and Angela prepared to leave for their honeymoon, a week at a beach resort where Grace would join them after 3 days with James's family. But before they left, they found Grace sitting at a table watching the last few guests dance. Did you have fun today, sweetheart? Angela asked, sitting beside her daughter. The best fun ever. Mama, I'm so glad you married Daddy. Now we're a real family. We've always been a real family, baby. But now we're official. Grace yawned widely. I'm tired. Today was a lot of excitement. Harrison scooped her up. Let's get you home then. You have a big day tomorrow playing with Uncle James's kids. As they walked to the car, Grace already half asleep in Harrison's arms, Angela felt overwhelming gratitude. Life had thrown terrible challenges at her. She had faced death, poverty, and despair. But she had also experienced profound love, unexpected kindness, and beautiful miracles. She looked at Harrison carrying their daughter, at the ring on her finger, at the life they were building together. This was what happiness looked like. This was what hope felt like. And this was only the beginning of their story. The first year of marriage brought changes and growth for the new family. Harrison and Angela bought a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and friendly neighbors. The house had 4 bedrooms, room to grow, they agreed, a large backyard where Grace could play, and a front porch perfect for morning coffee. Grace loved her new home. Her bedroom was twice the size of the one in the apartment, and Harrison built her a reading nook by the window where she could curl up with her books. They adopted a golden retriever puppy that Grace named Sunshine, and the dog became her constant companion. Angela continued to flourish at the Blake Foundation. She launched a new program called Second Chances, specifically designed to help families recovering from medical crises get back on their feet. The program provided not just financial assistance but also job training, counseling services, and educational support. Within the first year, Second Chances helped over 100 families rebuild their lives. Harrison was incredibly proud of his wife. She had a gift for connecting with people, for understanding what they needed even when they couldn't articulate it themselves. She worked long hours but always made time for family. Dinner together every night was non-negotiable. Weekend mornings were for pancakes and lazy mornings in pajamas. Grace excelled in first grade. Her teacher called her a natural leader, noting how she befriended shy children and stood up for kids who were being picked on. She joined the school choir and discovered she had a beautiful singing voice. At the winter concert, Harrison and Angela sat in the front row, bursting with pride as Grace sang a solo. On their first wedding anniversary, Harrison surprised Angela with a weekend getaway to a mountain cabin. They left Grace with James and his wife, promising to bring back lots of pictures. At the cabin, they hiked through forests, sat by a crackling fire, and talked about their future. "I want to have another baby," Angela said one evening as they watched the sunset from the cabin's deck. "Grace would be an amazing big sister." Harrison pulled her close. "I want that too. Let's start trying. Our family has room for more love." 3 months later, Angela discovered she was pregnant. She told Harrison by presenting him with a small box at dinner. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes with a note. "Big sister Grace needs these for her little sibling." Harrison stared at the shoes, then at Angela, then burst into tears of joy. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "We're having a baby. We're really having a baby." Grace was thrilled at the news. She immediately began making plans, insisting the baby's room should be painted yellow, because she didn't know if it would be a boy or girl yet, and filled with stuffed animals. She talked to Angela's growing belly every night, telling the baby about her day and promising to be the best big sister ever. The pregnancy went smoothly. Angela experienced some morning sickness in the first trimester, but overall she felt healthy and strong. Her new kidney continued to function perfectly. Dr. Reynolds monitored her closely, taking extra precautions given her medical history, but everything looked excellent. As Angela's belly grew, Harrison became increasingly protective and attentive. He made sure she rested enough, ate well, and didn't overwork herself at the foundation. He attended every doctor's appointment, held her hand during every ultrasound, and teared up the first time they heard the baby's heartbeat. They found out they were having a boy. Grace immediately started planning what games she would teach him and what stories she would read to him. "I'm going to teach him about kindness," she declared. "Just like you and Daddy taught me." Harrison and Angela decided to name the baby Thomas, after Angela's first husband and Grace's father. Grace suggested it one evening at dinner, and Angela burst into tears. "Are you sure, baby?" Angela asked. "That's your daddy's name." "I know. I think my daddy would like it if his name continued with my baby brother. It's like he's still part of our family." Harrison squeezed Angela's hand under the table. "I think it's a perfect name. We'll call him Thomas and we'll tell him all about the brave man he's named after." As Angela's due date approached, the family prepared for the baby's arrival. They set up the nursery with a crib, changing table, and shelves full of baby books. Grace helped fold tiny clothes and arrange stuffed animals. Harrison installed a baby monitor and childproofed the entire house. One night, 2 weeks before the due date, Angela woke up with contractions. She shook Harrison awake. "It's time. The baby's coming." Harrison jumped out of bed, suddenly wide awake and slightly panicked. Okay, we need to get to the hospital." "Where's the hospital bag? Did we pack everything? Should I wake Grace?" Angela laughed through a contraction. "Yes, wake Grace. Call James to meet us at the house to stay with her. And breathe, Harrison. We've got this." At the hospital, labor progressed quickly. Harrison stayed by Angela's side the entire time, holding her hand, encouraging her, and wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. 6 hours after they arrived, Thomas Harrison Blake entered the world, crying lustily and waving his tiny fists. "He's perfect," Angela whispered, tears streaming down her face as the nurses placed the baby on her chest. "Just like his mother," Harrison said, kissing her forehead. When they brought Grace to the hospital the next day to meet her baby brother, her face lit up with wonder. She climbed carefully onto the hospital bed beside Angela and stared at Thomas with wide eyes. "He's so tiny. Can I hold him?" Angela helped Grace hold the baby, supporting his head. Grace looked down at Thomas with such love and gentleness that both Angela and Harrison felt their hearts might burst. "Hi, Thomas," Grace whispered. "I'm your big sister, Grace. I'm going to take care of you and teach you everything I know. We're going to have so much fun together." Thomas opened his eyes and seemed to look right at Grace. She gasped with delight. "Mama, he knows me. He knows I'm his sister." Bringing Thomas home from the hospital was both exciting and terrifying. Angela and Harrison were experienced with babies, Angela with Grace years ago and Harrison had done lots of research, but adding a newborn to their family still required adjustment. Grace was an incredibly helpful big sister. She fetched diapers, helped choose outfits for Thomas, and sang him lullabies when he cried. She was gentle and patient, never showing jealousy or resentment at the attention the baby required. The first few months with a newborn were exhausting. Angela was up multiple times each night to feed Thomas. Harrison took over morning duty so she could sleep in. They worked as a team, supporting each other through the sleepless nights and endless diaper changes. But it was also magical. Watching Grace bond with her brother. Seeing Harrison rock Thomas to sleep, singing off-key lullabies. Late-night feedings where Angela and Harrison talked in whispers about their dreams for their children. Family dinners where Grace entertained Thomas with funny faces while Angela and Harrison looked on with tired but happy smiles. On Thomas's first birthday, they threw a party in their backyard. Friends and family gathered to celebrate. Grace had helped bake the cake, chocolate Thomas's favorite, and insisted on being in charge of decorating. The house was filled with love and laughter. As Angela looked around at their home, their friends, their children, she felt overwhelming gratitude. 3 years ago, she had been dying in a homeless shelter. Now she had a beautiful family, a fulfilling career, and a life beyond her wildest dreams. That evening, after the guests left and the children were in bed, Angela and Harrison sat on their porch swing, watching fireflies dance in the yard. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Angela asked. "Sometimes I still can't believe it's real. That I get to wake up next to you every day. That we created this beautiful life together. It all started with Grace being brave enough to ask for help. And with you being strong enough to accept it. Angela, you've taught me so much about courage, resilience, and love. I'm a better man because of you. We made each other better. That's what love does." They sat in comfortable silence, hand in hand as the stars came out overhead. Inside, their children slept peacefully. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and joys. But tonight, everything was perfect. 2 years after Thomas's birth, when Grace was 9 and thriving in 4th grade, the family faced an unexpected challenge. Harrison's company was offered a merger opportunity that would significantly expand the Blake Foundation's reach but would require him to travel internationally several times a year. The offer came during a board meeting. James presented the details of the merger with a company called Global Reach Enterprises, an international conglomerate interested in partnering with Harrison's charitable foundation to expand medical assistance programs worldwide. "This could help hundreds of thousands of people," James explained. "But it would require significant time investment from you, Blake. International meetings, site visits, establishing programs in other countries. You'd be traveling at least once a month." Harrison felt torn. The opportunity was incredible, a chance to help people on a scale he had never imagined. But it would mean time away from Angela and the kids. How could he miss bedtime stories with Thomas or Grace's soccer games? That evening, he discussed it with Angela over dinner after the children were in bed. He expected her to be upset about the travel requirements, but she surprised him. "Harrison, this is an amazing opportunity. Think about how many families we could help. Families just like ours was. You have to do this. But it means being away from you and the kids. I'll miss important moments." Angela took his hands. "You won't miss everything. And when you're here, you'll be fully present. We'll make it work because that's what families do. Besides, this work is important. Those families need someone who understands what they're going through. They need you." Grace, who had been listening from the stairs, she had gotten up for water, came into the kitchen. "Daddy, if you can help other little girls like I was, you should do it. I remember being scared and sick. If you can make other kids not scared anymore, that's important." Harrison pulled Grace onto his lap. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from you and Mama. You taught me that helping people is what matters most." With his family's support, Harrison accepted the merger deal. Over the next several months, he traveled to countries across the globe, establishing medical assistance programs in communities that desperately needed them. He met families facing the same struggles Angela had faced, children who reminded him of Grace, and each time he felt grateful that he could make a difference. While Harrison was away, Angela managed the household with efficiency and grace. She had help from a wonderful nanny named Patricia who came during the day, but Angela made sure to be home for dinner and bedtime every night. She attended all of Grace's school events and Thomas's daycare activities, refusing to let her children feel like they were missing out. Grace stepped up too, becoming an even more responsible big sister. She helped Thomas with his nightly routine, reading him stories and making sure his favorite stuffed lion was in his crib. She did her homework without being asked and helped set the table for dinner. At 9 years old, she showed maturity beyond her years. But it wasn't always easy. Thomas started having nightmares when Harrison was away, crying for his daddy in the middle of the night. Grace sometimes got frustrated when her friends talked about doing things with their dads on weekends and hers was on another continent. Angela felt overwhelmed trying to be both mother and father when Harrison was gone. One particularly difficult week, when Harrison had been gone for 10 days and Thomas was especially clingy, Angela broke down crying after the kids were finally asleep. She called Harrison and he answered immediately despite the time difference. "I don't know if I can do this," Angela admitted through tears. "Thomas won't stop crying for you. Grace is trying so hard to be strong, but I can tell she misses you. And I miss you so much it hurts." "I miss you too. God, Angela, I miss all of you so much. Maybe I should come home early." No, you finish what you started. We'll be okay. I just needed to hear your voice. Listen to me. You are the strongest person I know. You've survived so much worse than me being away for a week. You've got this. And I'll be home in 3 days. I promise." Angela wiped her tears. "I know. I'm sorry for falling apart. Don't apologize. This is hard. It's hard for all of us. But we're doing something important. Just hold on for 3 more days." When Harrison returned from that trip, he walked through the front door to find Thomas and Grace waiting for him. Thomas toddled over as fast as his little legs could carry him, shouting, "Daddy, Daddy." Grace was right behind him. Harrison dropped his bags and gathered both children in his arms. Angela watched from the kitchen doorway, tears of relief in her eyes. Harrison looked up at her over the children's heads, and the love in his eyes took her breath away. When the kids finally let him go, he crossed the room and pulled Angela into a long, tight hug. "I'm home," he whispered. "I'm home and I'm so grateful for you. For all of you." That evening, after dinner and bath time and tucking the kids in, Harrison and Angela talked about finding better balance. They decided that Harrison would limit his international travel to once every 2 months instead of monthly. He would make sure at least 1 trip per quarter was short, just 3 or 4 days. And they would plan special family activities for when he returned from each trip. They also decided to start a new tradition: video calls every morning and evening when Harrison was away. Thomas could see his father's face and hear his voice. Grace could tell him about her day. Angela could feel connected even when they were thousands of miles apart. The adjustments helped. The family found their rhythm, learning to treasure the time they had together and stay connected during separations. Harrison made sure to schedule his trips around important events: Grace's school play, Thomas's 3rd birthday party, their wedding anniversary. During one of Harrison's trips to a rural area in Southeast Asia, he met a little boy named Covey who reminded him so much of Thomas. Covey had been suffering from a treatable heart condition, but his family couldn't afford the surgery. Harrison immediately arranged for the medical care Covey needed, just as he had done for Angela years ago. When he video called home that night and told Angela and the kids about Covey, Grace said, "Daddy, I'm proud of you. You're making other families happy like you made us happy." "I couldn't do this without you guys supporting me," Harrison replied. "You're the reason I know how important this work is." As the months passed, the international expansion of the Blake Foundation proved to be incredibly successful. They helped thousands of families access medical care they couldn't otherwise afford. They built partnerships with hospitals in a dozen countries. They created a model for sustainable, compassionate healthcare assistance that other organizations began to emulate. At home, the family continued to grow stronger. Grace joined the school robotics club and discovered a passion for engineering. Thomas started preschool and charmed everyone with his infectious giggle and kind heart. Angela's Second Chances program expanded to include career counseling and small business loans, helping families not just survive their crises but thrive afterward. One evening, as the family sat together watching a movie, Grace had chosen a superhero film, Thomas was curled up with Sunshine the dog, and Angela was nestled against Harrison. Harrison felt a profound sense of contentment. Yes, life was busy. Yes, there were challenges. But they faced everything together as a family with love and support. "I have an announcement," Grace said during a commercial break. Everyone looked at her. She had that serious expression she got when she was about to say something important. "I've decided what I want to be when I grow up." "What's that, sweetheart?" Angela asked. "A doctor. I want to help sick people like Daddy helps them, but I want to actually do the medicine part. Is that okay?" Harrison felt his eyes well up. "That's more than okay. That's wonderful. You'll be an amazing doctor. I want to help kids, especially kids who are scared. I remember being scared when you were sick, Mama. I want to make kids feel better. Angela hugged her daughter tightly. I have no doubt you'll do exactly that. You have the biggest heart of anyone I know. Thomas, not wanting to be left out, piped up. I want to be a superhero when I grow up. Everyone laughed. Harrison tousled his son's hair. Buddy, you're already a superhero to me. That night, after the kids were asleep, Harrison and Angela lay in bed talking about the future. Grace's declaration had made them both emotional. She's going to do amazing things, Angela said. Both of them will. They learned from the best. You've shown them what strength and compassion look like. You've taught them to care about others and to never give up hope. We taught them together. You've shown them generosity and kindness. You've demonstrated that having wealth means having responsibility to help others. I guess we make a pretty good team. The best team. As Angela drifted off to sleep, Harrison stayed awake a bit longer, thinking about how his life had changed since that rainy day when a desperate little girl burst into his office. He had gained a family, a purpose, and a depth of love he never knew existed. The challenges they faced only made them stronger. And he knew with absolute certainty that whatever the future brought, they would face it together. 5 years later, Grace was 14 and preparing for high school. Thomas was 7 and had just finished second grade. The Blake family had settled into a comfortable rhythm, balancing Harrison's occasional international travel with family time, Angela's meaningful work at the foundation, and the children's busy school and activity schedules. On a warm Saturday morning in June, the family gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. Grace was making pancakes, a skill she had perfected over the years. Thomas was setting the table, carefully placing napkins at each spot. Angela was cutting fresh fruit, and Harrison was brewing coffee. Family meeting after breakfast, Harrison announced. We have something important to discuss. Grace and Thomas exchanged curious glances. Family meetings usually meant something exciting was about to happen. After breakfast, they all settled in the living room. Sunshine the dog, now old and gentle, lay at Thomas's feet. Harrison cleared his throat and Angela smiled, knowing what he was about to say. Your mother and I have been talking, Harrison began. The Blake Foundation has been incredibly successful. We've helped tens of thousands of families over the years. But we want to do something more. Something permanent that will continue helping people long after we're gone. What kind of something? Grace asked, leaning forward with interest. We're establishing the Grace and Thomas Blake Scholarship Fund, Angela explained. It will provide full college scholarships to young people who have overcome significant hardships, especially medical challenges or poverty. We're funding it with enough money to send 100 students to college every year, forever. Grace's eyes widened. You're naming it after us? We are, Harrison confirmed. Because you two are our inspiration. Grace, your courage when you were 5 years old changed everything. You taught us about bravery and hope. Thomas, you remind us every day about joy and resilience. We want other young people to have the same opportunities you'll have. Thomas looked confused. What's a scholarship? Grace explained to her little brother, her voice full of emotion. It means kids who don't have money for college can still go. It means other kids like we used to be will get a chance to learn and grow and become whatever they want to be. Like you becoming a doctor? Thomas asked. Exactly like that. The scholarship fund was officially launched that fall at a gala event. Grace, now confident and poised, gave a speech about her family's journey from homelessness to hope. She talked about the day she walked barefoot into her father's office, desperate to save her mother. She talked about kindness, second chances, and the responsibility to help others once you've been helped yourself. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The event raised millions in additional donations from attendees who were moved by Grace's story. The scholarship fund was guaranteed to impact generations of students. That evening, after the gala, the family returned home exhausted but happy. Grace changed out of her formal dress into comfortable pajamas. Thomas had fallen asleep in the car and Harrison carried him to bed. Angela kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. That was incredible, Angela said to Grace as they stood in the kitchen making tea. You were so brave up there telling our story. I wanted people to understand how important this is. I remember what it was like, Mama. I remember being scared and hungry and worried you were going to die. If our story can help other families, then it's worth sharing. Angela hugged her daughter, marveling at how much she had grown. Grace was almost as tall as Angela now, beautiful and brilliant and kind. I'm so proud of you. Not just tonight but always. You've grown into an amazing young woman. I learned from the best. The next few years brought more changes and growth. Grace graduated from high school at the top of her class and was accepted to every college she applied to. She chose to attend Stanford University to study pre-med. The day they dropped her off at college, Angela cried, happy tears she insisted, and Harrison gave Grace a long hug, whispering advice and encouragement. Remember who you are, he told her. Remember where you came from. Stay kind, work hard, and don't forget to call your mother or she'll worry. Grace laughed through her own tears. I promise. I love you, Dad. Thomas struggled when his big sister left for college. He missed her terribly, video calling her almost every night. But Grace always answered, asking about his day, helping with homework, and reminding him she'd be home for Thanksgiving. With Grace away at college, Thomas got more one-on-one time with his parents. He discovered a love for music, learning to play piano. He joined the school choir just like Grace had. He was a natural performer, unafraid of the spotlight. Angela continued her work at the foundation, now serving as the executive director. She had taken night classes over the years and earned her bachelor's degree, then a master's degree in nonprofit management. She spoke at conferences, wrote articles about healthcare access, and became a recognized advocate for families facing medical crises. Harrison scaled back his international travel as the years went on, wanting to be present for Thomas's important moments the way he had sometimes missed Grace's when she was younger. He and Angela made sure to have date nights every week, keeping their marriage strong and connected. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Harrison planned a surprise for Angela. He rented out the garden venue where they had gotten married and invited all their closest friends and family. When Angela walked into the garden that evening, thinking they were just going to dinner, she found herself surrounded by the people she loved most. What is this? She asked, stunned. Harrison took her hands. This is me wanting to renew our vows. Angela, these past 10 years have been the best of my life. I want to stand here, in the same place we got married, and promise all over again to love you forever. Angela laughed and cried at the same time. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. They stood under the same archway, decorated with roses and daisies just like their wedding, with Grace home from college and Thomas beside them, and renewed their commitment to each other. This time, Grace and Thomas both participated in the ceremony, speaking about what their parents' love had taught them. You showed me that family isn't just about biology, Grace said. It's about choosing to love and support each other no matter what. Dad, you chose to love Mama and me when you didn't have to. You gave us a chance at life. I'll never forget that. Thomas, now 11 and full of confidence, added his thoughts. Mom and Dad, you taught me that love means being kind even when it's hard. You taught me to help people who need it. You taught me that having things is nice, but having each other is everything. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Angela and Harrison found themselves standing in the same spot where they had shared their first dance as husband and wife 10 years earlier. The lake reflected the moonlight just like it had that night. Do you remember what you asked me that night? Angela said softly. I asked if you were happy. I was happy then. I'm even happier now. You've given me a beautiful life, Harrison. Not because of money or houses or things, but because of love. Because you saw me at my worst moment and chose to help. Because you loved my daughter as your own. Because you've been my partner through everything. Angela, I'm the one who got the better deal. You and Grace saved me from a hollow existence. You taught me what really matters. You gave me purpose and family and love. Every good thing in my life traces back to the day Grace walked into my office. They danced slowly, holding each other close, as their children and closest friends watched with tears in their eyes. This was what happily ever after looked like, not perfect but real. Not without challenges but full of love. Not the end of a story but the continuation of a beautiful journey. On the drive home that night, with Grace and Thomas asleep in the back seat, Angela rested her head on Harrison's shoulder. We did pretty good, didn't we? She whispered. We did better than good. We created something beautiful. I love you, Harrison Blake. I love you too, Angela Blake. Forever. As they pulled into their driveway, the porch light welcoming them home, Angela thought about how far they had come. From a homeless shelter to this beautiful house. From desperation to joy. From strangers to soulmates. Grace had been right all those years ago when she told the story of her desperate plea. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead to the best things we could never have imagined. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes, love really does conquer everything. Their story didn't end here. There would be more challenges, more triumphs, more moments of joy and struggle. Grace would become a doctor, just as she dreamed, specializing in pediatric nephrology and treating children with kidney disease. Thomas would become a music therapist, using his gifts to help sick children heal. Angela and Harrison would continue their foundation work, helping thousands more families find hope in their darkest moments. But on this night, as the Blake family walked into their home together, they were simply grateful. Grateful for second chances. Grateful for love. Grateful for each other. And somewhere in heaven, Thomas Sr. looked down on his daughter and the family she had found, and he smiled. His girls were happy. His girls were loved. His girls were safe. And that was all he had ever wanted. The lights in the Blake house glowed warm in the darkness, a beacon of hope and love. Inside, a family who had been brought together by desperation and bound together by love settled in for the night. Outside, the stars shone bright, witnesses to a story of courage, kindness, and the transformative power of love. This was their happy ending. But more importantly, it was their beautiful beginning.